Hey, everybody, what's going on? It is Dan Mathews, and you notice that it's only just me today. It's Dan Mathews and the animals, but the animal himself, Matt Maltepis, well, not feeling too well, a little bit under the weather. Hey, guess what? I understand what people think now whenever you hear, oh, under the weather, oh, all those different types of things. No, it's that time of the year. Guess what? People still get sick. It doesn't mean it's that. But Matt feeling a little bit under the weather. Like I said, it's just that time of the year. I mean, colds and flus still happen. I'm not a doctor, any of those types of things. Hopefully, me trying to wade into the medical world doesn't get this video taken down. But anyway, saying it all tongue in cheek. But in this case right here, Matt, just, hey, a little under the weather. It's all good. He'll be back with us on Thursday. But of course, with this one being episode 26, it's a recap episode. So got all of his plays from the last games. We'll go through them and see how we did this week. And of course, even get you ready for a primer for championship weekend, which of course, Thursday's episode, we will dive into those games. We will do that, and we will get you ready for all 5 Power 5 championship games that are going to be monstrous in terms of the overall college football playoff picture. I mean, let's call it what it is. These last couple of weeks of the season won't mean as much. Like last week, the game between Ohio State and Michigan. Well, it's going to be one of those things that's going to hurt the pride if you lose that game because neither Ohio State nor Michigan want to lose to each other. But in this case right here, Ohio State, kind of like last year, they've got to sweat it out a little bit. They've got to hope for some help in order to find their way back into the college football playoff picture. The rankings are going to come out a little bit later today. I would probably expect with the loss that Ohio State will still be at that 6 range, maybe, who knows, because of Texas's dominant win. Maybe Texas is in front of them. Maybe Alabama is as well with their win. Although, I mean, the way that Alabama played against Auburn, I would probably maybe still have Ohio State in front of them. But the moral of the story is for the Buckeyes out there who are watching, you're still alive for this. Now, you're on life support to be able to make the college football playoff, but you still have a chance. You need a lot of help. I mean, I think that you probably need to channel a little bit of the Les Miles led 2007 LSU team, who at the time, of course, with it being the BCS, you had to, really have a lot of things go your way, and it did that night for LSU. So I know that Ohio State is very much Oklahoma State fans this weekend. I know that they are Louisville fans this weekend, and everything else I think probably needs to play out. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode. But let's get into the games of what we had that we got you ready for last week. Of course, we did the one episode with it being the week of Thanksgiving. We combined everything all into one. So that is how we handled that one. But for this one, though, let's start off first with the Oregon State and Oregon game. Of course, that was a game that a lot of people looked at as a very much must-win for Oregon. For those who wanted them knocked out of the playoff picture, they were sadly disappointed after this one because Oregon dominated this one from beginning to end. They win this one 31-7 over Oregon State. Now, it is kind of one of those things. It is silly season in college football. So some people are wondering, was Jonathan Smith, the coach at Oregon State, was he a little distracted for this one as he was, finalizing his new job at Michigan State? Maybe that could have maybe played into it, but still, Oregon able to just dominate this one. Bo Nix, strengthening that Heisman campaign as he was able to have a strong game in this one for Oregon as the Ducks win this one 31-7. Now, we started off with a win in that one because the over-under for this one was 62. But with it only getting up to 38, of course, that is a cover for that one. So if you took that play that Matt Maltepis threw at you, then you were very happy for that one. Bo Nix's numbers in this one, 367 yards through the air, a couple of touchdowns as the Ducks keeping their case alive. And probably the most consequential college championship game, conference championship game that's going to be this weekend is the one Friday night in Las Vegas between Oregon and also Washington. I would probably guess later today when we get the college football playoff rankings, I would guess that the Ducks will probably be at number 5. And Washington came into this one as the what were they? They were the number 4 team in the country. They had jumped Florida State for that one. We'll get into Florida State here in just a second, but I would probably guess with the Ohio State loss, that's going to knock them out of the top 4. Obviously, Georgia probably going to stay either 1 or 2. I'll get to that here in just a second. Michigan obviously still going to be in there. So I would probably expect that we will see Oregon move up to number 3. I think Florida State probably goes to number 4 with their win. We'll get to that here in just a second. But as I said, the college football playoff picture, it is going to be closely paid attention to, especially this weekend with conference championship weekend ahead for this one. But if you played Matt's play on that one, leaning the under in that one, if you played the under, I played the under. It was a good play in that regard because it was a huge cover for that one. So anyway, that is a win in that game. All right, let's move on to the other game, one of the other 4 games that we talked about. I did talk about Florida State, and that one was one that, at least if you played Florida 6.5, you were looking good for a time because Florida was just able to make plays early on in the game, putting a huge scare into Florida State. But then some of the things that have kind of plagued Florida these last couple of years, penalties, undisciplined play, personal foul penalties, unsportsmanlike conducts, all of those different types of things came into play in this one. And you got to give Mike Norvell and the Noles credit for this one because they stayed the course. It was not pretty. It was not what they would hope it would be because probably if you had Jordan Travis for this one, it is an easy cover for Florida State in that one. But credit due where it is due in this case right here, and credit where it deserves to be due is with Tate Rodemaker. Because, talk about being put into a meat grinder of a situation there. It's a rivalry game. You're trying your best to stay undefeated and trying to give yourself every single opportunity to make the college football playoff. And it looked like early on, he had that safety. This one was looking like, oh no, this is not going to be Florida State's night. Best case scenario after this, you go and beat Louisville next weekend. You win the ACC, you go to the Orange Bowl and have a chance to have a nice 13-win season. But now 13-win season, you could get it this weekend if you're Florida State. But for this one, like I said, Matt liked the Gators 6.5 for this one. I did too, and we were looking good for a time. I played Florida plus the 6.5 as well. And obviously, Florida State with some turnovers late and also, too, like I said, some of that undisciplined play, able to get into the end zone once more in order to be able to make it a 24-15 win in that one. Now the Noles taking on a hungry Louisville team who was unable to beat Kentucky last weekend, and you probably have to believe for Louisville. It's kind of the shoe is on the other foot. What happened to them is what people feared could happen to Florida State. And now for Jeff Brom and his crew, they're trying to be able to derail Florida's season. There's going to be a lot of people rooting for Louisville in this one because let's just go ahead and say it like this. Texas last weekend gets the huge win over Texas Tech. They're 11-1 right now. They probably should handle business against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. They're going to need help, though. And a way that they can get help is really for them, their path is a lot easier. A win on Saturday and somebody losing either Friday or on Saturday, I think gets Texas into the college football playoff. Now, it's going to be interesting in terms of that argument because let's say Oregon wins on Friday night, which right now the number is strong in Oregon's favor. I think last I checked, it was 9 for Oregon. They've been playing really good football ever since that loss in Seattle to Washington. And a lot of people think that they are trending up while Washington might be trending down. They had a close win, had to get a last-second field goal in order to win that game against Washington State. So a lot of people really riding high on the Ducks for this one. That would be a tricky situation right there because Oregon is ahead of them right now in the college football playoff polls. I would probably expect that Oregon will be at number 5 tonight. So if Oregon wins that game, then the argument is, well, then how the hell are you not going to put them in over Texas? It's going to be a tough Sunday and Saturday night for the College Football Playoff Committee. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So for Florida State now, I mean, a chance to go to 13-0. And I know that people out there are saying, oh, well, whoever they would face, if say things stayed the way that they are and they face Georgia, say in the Sugar Bowl, Georgia's going to kill them. Well, you get a month to prepare. You get a lot of time. You get a chance to be able to get some injured guys back. And also to, really kind of be able to recalibrate. And I think the other thing is as well is Tate Rodemaker's getting very valuable playing time right now. And I think that that's absolutely going to help him. So don't count out Florida State just yet. They still have a ton of talent. I mean, that defense showed you just how good they are. And I think that probably the way that Mike Norvell has been able to rally that team, especially since the gruesome injury to Jordan Travis, I wouldn't write off Florida State just yet. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get to the Alabama-Auburn game, the Iron Bowl. I mean, it was one for the ages. And probably if you are a football purist, it was not necessarily one for the ages because this was an ugly game. And let's call it what it is. If Auburn had better players, Auburn wins that game. Auburn right now is just trying to piece this thing together as best they can. I think the fact that Hugh Freeze got them to a 6-6 finish this year with the roster that he had is a great enough coaching job in itself. And like I said, if this were LSU or if this were, let me throw out Tennessee or somebody else, Alabama loses that game on Saturday night. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You had to have a miracle in order to be able to win this. I mean, it was the 4th and 31. We can talk about the defense that Auburn played in that situation, but you gave Jalen Milroe time. He threw it to the end zone. Isaiah Bond made a hell of a catch. I mean, I think if nothing else, it's one of those things, and Alabama fans, just like any fans in a rivalry, certain things kind of worry them. Like, I'll give you a good story here. I remember in 2017 when I went down to Jacksonville for Florida, Georgia, whatever you want to call it. And, Florida was a team that was in turmoil at the time. And that was the end of the Jim McElwain era. And Georgia was just a better football team. But I remember that Georgia fans, every single one of them, how you feeling about this game? It's Jacksonville. And I think that Alabama fans kind of feel the same way about going to Jordan-Hare Stadium, is they feel like there's weird things that happen in that stadium. It's a tough place for opponents to play. I mean, that's why Auburn has been able to win some huge games over there in the last few years. I mean, they played Georgia close there this year. I understand that coaches and fan bases, especially in the SEC, are not into moral victories, but you played them in a close game. And then you almost won this one on Saturday night. I mean, it has been a place that, if nothing else, they have had Jordan-Hare magic over the last few years, and people thought it was going to be the same thing. I think that Auburn fans were ready to rush the field had that pass not been completed to Isaiah Bond, but still a great catch by Bond. Great play right there. Alabama survives. Alabama moves on. They're 11-1 heading into the SEC championship game to take on Georgia this weekend. And that's where things, I think, get a little hairy for this one. We were just talking about the Texas and Oregon scenario for making the college football playoff. How about, for this one, Alabama winning? There's a lot of people out there that don't think that guarantees them getting in. As a matter of fact, people wonder if Alabama wins this game, does that knock the SEC out altogether? Like I said, committee, if that happens, I am not envious of your situation on Saturday night, Sunday morning, trying to put in the 4 teams into this college football playoff. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think I've seen that line get all the way up to 5.5 for Georgia. It is going to be a really fun battle. I mean, we'll talk about it more on Thursday, but I did a radio hit shout out to Lee Shervanian and the crew and Mark Heim and the crew on WNSP down in Mobile. And I said that, yes, offense, you give the edge to Georgia. Defensively, I would probably think that you give the edge a little bit more to Alabama. They've been a better defensive unit this year. So that's going to come down to the other parts of the game, special teams, and other things that can make this one. So I think we are looking at yet another classic between these two in the SEC championship game. The others have not gone Georgia's way. I mean, it goes back to the very first SEC championship game I covered in 2012. You had the long pass from A.J. McCarron to Amari Cooper for the touchdown, where he was able to beat Damian Swan for the touchdown. And then Georgia gets close. The ball is batted at the line of scrimmage. Chris Conley catches it as he's falling down. Time runs out. Confetti, everything going. Alabama wins, and they go on to absolutely crush Notre Dame in the BCS championship game. And there's been others ever since then as well. 2018 was another one. The fake punt with Justin Fields on the field. You're like, what the hell is going on here, Kirby? What are you doing? And that didn't work out. And then, of course, the 2021 SEC championship game when Alabama was able to just absolutely crush Georgia in that one. But then again, they met up again in the College Football Playoff National Championship game in Indianapolis, and that was finally Georgia's night. So were some demons exercised that night? I mean, I think that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But these are two programs who are incredibly familiar with each other. They're going to play each other again next regular season in Tuscaloosa. So a lot of tough things ahead in this matchup. But for this one, it is going to be a fun one to watch on Saturday. But for this one, though, we had Alabama minus a touchdown and a hook, or 2 touchdowns and a hook. And that obviously does not cover with the Crimson Tide, only winning this one by 3. Let's get to the final one. I mean, I felt good about this one. Matt really felt good about this one. And for the 3rd straight year, Michigan proving us both wrong, because, you know, it was one of those things that probably a lot of us out there thinking, oh, there's no way that Ohio State can lose this game 3 years in a row. Well, that way did happen as Ohio State loses this one 30-24. They turned the football over a couple of times. We took Ohio State plus 3.5. That obviously doesn't hit, and the over-under for this one was 46, with it being 54 for the total. That obviously hits the over in that one. So, you know, these were 2 teams that at times this year had struggled offensively. Ohio State started to come along as of late, and that's what I thought was going to be the deciding factor in this one, because Michigan has been a team that has struggled in terms of being able to put together consistent offense at times. But for this one, they were able to do it with the help as well of a couple of key turnovers. You know, a missed field goal by Ohio State before the half, which Ryan Day, I mean, come on, man. Did we not learn our lesson from the Peach Bowl last year, where you sent Noah Ruggles out there and he absolutely just duck hooked it left for a chance to win that game? He sends the place kicker out there again at the end of the half for like a 51-52 long enough field goal, which it was a blustery, cold, windy day up there in Ann Arbor. I don't like putting, you know, college place kickers in that situation. I mean, we see it in the pros all the time. There's only a handful of guys that probably you're going to trust to be able to make that kick. Now, I mean, at the same time in the NFL, every single one of those guys are pros for a reason. You feel like they can make that kick, but it's still a pretty low percentage kick. And I just, for the life of me, can't understand Ryan Day playing for that yet again. I mean, you want to talk about who was the aggressor and who was the one who had the aggressive play towards them. Sharon Moore in Michigan were absolutely the aggressors in this one, going for it on 4th downs. I mean, just absolutely just trusting their run game with Blake Corum leading the way there. And they were able to control the line of scrimmage, even after Zach Center went down with the awful injury that had him carted off the field. I think broken tibia and fibia for that one. Man, that is rough. But they were able to, you know, pick up the pieces after that and go and be able to win this one. And it just shows you just, you know, how good of a program Michigan is right now. There's a reason why they feel good about their opportunities of not only winning on Saturday against Iowa, which I don't think there's going to be anybody picking Iowa for that one, but also too as well feeling good about their chance to finally be able to win a college football playoff game and get to the national championship game. And I think the matchup that a lot of people would like to see for that one would be them against Georgia. And has that gap been closed a little bit? Can Michigan be able to say, yeah, we're here, we can beat you? And I think that's going to be interesting. I know probably a lot of people in college football would love to see that one. We'll see how it all plays out. But Michigan able to win this one 30-24. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 26. If you would, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends about us right here, Dan Mathews and the Animals, on the College Kids channel right here on YouTube. But for episode 27, what are we getting you ready for? We are getting you ready for the Pac-12 championship. That, of course, Oregon and Washington, Friday night in Vegas. That is going to be a lot of fun. We will get you ready for the Big 12 championship between Texas and Oklahoma State. The SEC as well. We will get you ready for Georgia and Alabama in that one. And also, too, as well, going to be getting you ready for the Big Ten championship between Michigan and Iowa, as well as the ACC between Florida State and Louisville. So for now, for me, Dan Mathews, I'll go ahead and say goodbye for the animal as well, who is usually right here, right next to me. He'll be back there on Thursday. He's Matt Maltepis. This is Dan Mathews and the Animals, episode 26. We will talk to you on Thursday.